Hey guys, and welcome back to Raw Lore. Today in episode 3 we'll be looking into something that many people have raised questions about as a potential plot hole. Conan Exiles has had some major story developments over the past year, mostly focused around mech trying to escape the exiled lands. However, whilst I've already documented all of that, one question has arisen in my mind, and in many different comments. What about the Keystone? This relic is a glaring issue in the lore. Why bother trying to break the cursed wall if anyone can just craft the Keystone and escape? Well, today I'll be analysing this to see if it is actually a plot hole, or if we can rationalise it. If you're unaware, the Keystone is basically the end point of Conan Exiles' main quest. You go across the map, killing various beasts and following different story threads until you end up with loads of relics from the time of the Giant Kings and the Lemurian Uprising. You head up to the Chaos Mouth and use them all together to craft the Keystone, which unshackles your bracelet, and you can then leave the exiled lands and quote-unquote finish the game. Any player can do this, and thus that causes a huge plot hole. If anyone can do it, why doesn't every single person in the exiled lands just craft the Keystone and leave? Okay, you've got to kill some bosses. Your average Sepimeru merchant probably couldn't do that, but for characters like mech walk in the park. How can we possibly rectify such an issue like this? Well, I think we can. Firstly, to understand the Keystone, we must first understand the conundrum of the player character. This was something I admittedly struggled with for a while, but eventually managed to rationalise. The player character is nobody special. They're strong, sure, but they're not unique. In a sense, we all play the same character in the lore. Whereas we all have different characters with different builds and designs, the lore treats them all as one person, the Exile. I'll use one of my favourite games as an example, and that is RuneScape. This fort, for example, is something you unlock with a bunch of quests, and you basically become the Duke of this stronghold. Everyone you see here building a new area is a Duke for their own fort, but that's only pertinent to our individual stories, as there is only one fort. Therefore, even though this area is full of other players, there is technically only one Duke. Back to Conan, regardless of how any individual person chooses to play the game, as long as they do the story, the results would basically be the same. The Exile travels the width and breadth of the exiled lands, tackling dungeons, slaying beasts and fighting off hordes of enemies. He or she is just one person, and ultimately the outcome of their story is binary. Either they escape the exiled lands, or they're in the process of doing so. The player character, lore-wise, is independent of the player's actions, aside from those that directly serve the story. Therefore, by recognising that the player character, the Exile, is just one person rather than multiple, we lay the foundation for understanding the Keystone. So, the Keystone itself is crafted using 6 artefacts: the Heart of the Sands, the Tears of Two Races, the Shining Trapezohedron, the Star of the Champion, the Mask of the Witch Queen, and the Diadem of the Giant Kings. These are all important relics in the lore, as they were all involved, in one way or another, with either the creation of the slave bracelets or the Lemurian Uprising. Now, in-game, we can go and kill the Witch Queen or the Kinscourge over and over again, and each time we do, we will retrieve their relevant artefact. You can have chests full of them, but as far as the lore is concerned, only one of these artefacts exist. They are all unique items. The fact we're able to achieve multiple is just a slight divorce between the lore and the game mechanics, which is pretty common to see. How do we know they're unique? Well, let's look at the origins of the items. The Diadem of the Giant Kings, the Heart of the Sands, and the Star of the Champion were all crafted by the Giant Kings. The Diadem was a symbol of power, the Heart was a magical relic, and the Star a mark of prowess in the arena. We can infer they were unique due to their significance. The Mask of the Witch Queen is unique because whilst other masks may exist in other areas of the world, this mask was specifically worn by the Lemurian Witch Queen that led the rebellion against the Giant Kings and who was present at the creation of the slave bracelets, therefore it is unique. The Shining Trapezohedron was stolen by the Serpent Men from the tower on Siptar and given to the Serpent Men in the Well of Skelos. It was a gift from the gods of the Outer Dark, and when the remaining elder races on Siptar tried to create a new one, it was flawed and caused them great peril. Therefore, whilst it is theoretically possible for another Shining Trapezohedron to exist, they are incredibly hard to recreate, even for the gods of the Outer Dark. It's also tied heavily to the Serpent Men of the Well and has a unique history, so therefore we can infer that this is a unique stone. Finally, the tears of two races. This was used in the creation of the slave bracelets, a relic that would be near impossible to create again, as it was born of the mixing of two races, human and giant king. It exists one final time, as a single tear from the Kinscourge, the only known half-human, half-giant king. The tear is symbolic of the final shred of the Kinscourge's humanity, and given his involvement in the Lemurian uprising, no other recreation of the tear could represent the essence of him. After we defeat the Kinscourge, he would never be able to shed that tear again. Therefore, it is also unique. So that leads us right back to the Keystone. Any exile can craft it and just waltz out of the cursed wall, at least in gameplay. In the lore, not so much. Because all of these relics are unique, they can only ever be attained once. Whilst we may farm dungeons over and over, the events that happen within only happen once in the lore. The Kinscourge only dies once. Rasma is only freed from the Witch Queen's mask once, and the degenerate inside the Well of Skelos will only die of exhaustion once. That just doesn't manifest in gameplay because, well, it would be mighty boring to wander back into any of these dungeons and find it empty with nothing to do. When we craft the Keystone, it takes the very essence of these relics. The Examine information says this: this Keystone, created through a ritual, contains the essence of the artifacts that were used to create the slave bracelets of the Giant Kings. By depriving those relics of their essence, they are destroyed. Any replica or recreation would not suffice, as the Keystone doesn't use their physical form, but rather the energy stored within them. The Giant Kings are long dead, the Lemurians are near enough gone, and that energy, along with the history of it, just cannot be recreated. But how would we have known about the Keystone in the first place? Reddit or the Conan Exiles wiki don't exist in the lore, so how would we know about this ancient key, or the relics to craft it? The Awakened Staff of the Triumvirate. We pull the staff from the dregs, likely the first dungeon the player will encounter. We take it to the Tower of Bats and awaken the demon within the staff, which guides us through basically all the steps to craft the Keystone. If it wasn't for the staff, we wouldn't know about these relics or how to free ourselves. However, much like the relics, the staff is unique. It was a gift directly from the Serpent Men to the Giant Kings, and eventually the Priest King threw it down to the sewers before going to battle the Kinscourge. Without the staff, nobody would know about the Keystone. Therefore, let us rectify the Keystone plot hole. The Keystone cannot be used by Mech, Rasma or anyone else. It can only be made by the Exile. That is because the Exile is the only person who has found the Staff of the Triumvirate and awakened it, and therefore is the only person who would know what they're looking for. As soon as the Exile completes his quest and crafts the Keystone, nobody else can ever accomplish that feat again. The Keystone is a one-use item, and the relics used to create it are destroyed in the process, meaning it can never be made again. There is the argument the Exile could give the Keystone, the relics, or the staff to another character, but to me that's kind of like Frodo giving the One Ring to any random peasant he finds. In a way, the destiny of the Exile is to craft the Keystone and escape. Mech's destiny is seemingly to destroy the Cursed Walls, Rasma's is to journey on with Conan, and so on. Ultimately, I don't think the Keystone is a plot hole, because dependent on which point you look at the story from, its nature is always limited. Either nobody knows about it, only the Exile is aware of its existence, or it's been crafted and can never be made again. I know a few people have brought up the Keystone as a potential issue for the plot before, and to be honest, it definitely had me stumped for a short while. There is a bit of a disconnect here between game mechanics and lore, which is to be expected in any multiplayer game with a story. However, I hope this video has helped to clear up the issues surrounding the Keystone. Thank you for watching, and of course a massive thanks to our wonderful esteemed coffee cultists for continuing to support the channel over on Patreon. Of course, this is only episode 3 of Raw Lore. You guys seem to be enjoying it, and there are a ton of other topics we can cover. If you have any specific topics you'd like to see delved into here, do let me know in the comments below. Again, thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you soon.